So before I introduce Sheila, please know that your best experience for this talk is going to be gallery view in Zoom. And please feel free to drop in questions in the chat for after the talk, but we're also going to try and let you ask them. So at the end of the talk, we'll ask you to raise your hand and we'll scroll through and we'll pick certain people to be able to ask questions. And it is my absolute pleasure to introduce Sheila Battle, someone who I've had the pleasure of getting to know over the past 2 years. Sheila has a deep passion that is rooted in her purpose, to see people grow from the inside out. She has a long list of accomplishments, but what makes her so lovely is her warmth and her grace. We are honored to have Sheila here today to engage in a soulful conversation with all of us. So virtual snaps, emojis, clap on camera, and please welcome Sheila.
Good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning, family. Wow, this is so amazing. The first thing that I want to do is just thank this Creative Mornings team. I want to say publicly what I've said privately to these amazing people. In times like these nice folks could have easily said, you know what, this is too much. The weight of pulling off something this extraordinary could have exhausted all of them. But if you are part of this Creative Mornings family and you are grateful that even in the midst of a pandemic that you could get your favorite beverage and wear your coziest pajamas, because I have no idea why it's cold in Richmond.
Right? Okay.
Go figure, Richmond weather, right? But if you are grateful beyond measure like I am, can you give these folks a round of applause? Can I see you in the gallery clapping it up for these amazing people and this amazing team? Creative Mornings is one of these innovative platforms that is going and growing around the world. And I couldn't be more thrilled to be here talking to you this morning about purpose. Now, I know that everybody is still trying to get settled maybe, and I just want to do a quick breathing exercise. Is that all right? If we just come and ground and get in the room together. So here's what I want you to do. I want to invite you to close your eyes. We're not going to be here long. We're not going to do this long. But I want to invite you to close your eyes. I want to invite you to just take a breath. It doesn't have to be deep. Your belly doesn't have to fill. Your chest doesn't have to rise and fall. Just breathe at your normal pace and rhythm. Just like that. And then I want you to take your right hand and put it over your heart. Allow your fingertips to press in so that you can feel the rhythm of your own heartbeat. That's you. And in the whisper of your own mind, in the whisper of your own heart, I want you to say, I am here. It is good for me to be here. We are here. And it is good for us to be here. Just breathe. And when you're ready, open your eyes and let's have a soulful conversation. Thank you so much for joining me in that. I am a hugger. And had we had the opportunity to be together, I would have taken advantage of hugging everybody. But since we couldn't do that, I wanted to create a sense of connection within this virtual community, because just because we are isolated in our homes, it doesn't mean that we can't be connected. And so doing that brief little exercise helped us to just breathe together for a moment without thinking about anything stressful or hectic or the next series of Zoom meetings that we have to do when this is over. It got us right here in the moment. So Michelle was gracious enough to introduce me, and I appreciate her so much. Again, I'm in love with several people who are on this great team, but I'm so honored that she introduced me with such kind words. Thank you, Michelle. I appreciate that. So let me tell you a little bit about me. My last name is Battle, and my home is affectionately referred to as the Battle Station. So what does that mean? The Battle Station is a place where we get to love everyday people every day. We do cool stuff like, well, when they were in school, 5 or 6 little kids on their way to the bus stop can come by here and get a Capri Sun and a honey bun. We have several big brown sofas, and on those sofas, we engage in soulful conversations with people who are in varying stages of life. We share joys with people, and we walk alongside people who are experiencing deep sorrow. And so our home is open, and my husband is in here, so we're gonna pretend like he's not in here. Our home is open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week to our community. We live in open community. It's not a job, it's our purpose. And this is how we live, offering ourselves of service to our community. And it's pretty cool. Honey, do you want to say hi? He actually put on a shirt, y'all. He is the producer. And we don't have on matching pajamas today, so we're not going to be corny. Somehow or another, we kept waking up and we had on the same pajamas. And I was like, well, are we really doing that on purpose? But it was completely by accident. But we're not mentioning today. But he is the love of my life. And at the Battle Station, he and I parent 2 incredible ladybugs. But then we have a plethora of bonus babies. We call them our bonus babies. And they drop in and out, and they are from 5 weeks old to college aged. And they are my heartbeats. The work that I do, vocationally, I guess you could say, is I'm a soul care coach. Now that sounds probably a little hyper spiritual. So let me clear it up a little bit. I'm not a business coach. I'm not a life coach. I live in the area of personal development. And so what that means for me is that we extend an invitation for people to engage in practices that help them renew their minds, align their wills, and stabilize their emotions so that they can flourish. We promote self-inquiry so that people can step into self-regulation and then experience self-mastery. And so every person is different. So there's no cookie cutter program. We sit down and we do intake and assessment like a regular clinician would, but then we strategize together on a plan that helps you get to where you want to be. So that's what we do over here at the Battle Station. And we have a ball doing it. So this month's topic is purpose. And I've been thinking about this since this invitation came. And I recognize that purpose can be a heavy word. If you know what your purpose is, then you feel confident. You're clear and you're walking it out. But if you don't know, the weight of it can be crushing. It can make you feel hopeless or purposeless. And so we want to explore, what is that journey of discovery like in the midst of a pandemic? So I think the first thing that we should do is define purpose, because I like Webster most of the time. And in that big book, or on that big app, as most of us use, Purpose is defined as the reason for which a thing exists. And I think Michelle was alluding to that earlier. It's the establishment of an intended desire, intention, or purpose, right? It's the feeling of being determined to achieve something, to be something, to become something. All of these words are the verbiage that we wrap around this big, big word called purpose. So if you don't know what your purpose is, I want to give you a couple of things to consider, a couple of areas to explore while we're in the midst of this pandemic with all of this supposed time on our hands. Passion will help you recognize the difference between your purpose and a hobby. If you don't get a dopamine shot when you're doing it, dopamine is dope, y'all. If you don't get a dopamine shot when you're doing it, it might just be a hobby and not your purpose. The other thing I want you to think about is, and this is if you don't know what your purpose is, that real purpose doesn't require praise. It doesn't require the accolades and the applause of other people. It's that thing that you feel so good when you're doing it that you would do it for free. You would do it naked. You would do it if nobody was looking. That's purpose. I didn't mean to freak y'all out by saying you could do it naked. Please, some of y'all, please do your purpose fully clothed. Thank you very much, especially if your purpose is public. If your purpose is public facing, please keep all of your clothes on. Thank you very much. For the last few weeks, I've been talking to quite a few creatives, and I appreciate, Jalinda and Nadia, especially because they make me feel like I'm part of the creative community. Now, I can barely stitch a hem. My artwork is at best stick figures. I'm not crafty. I cook. Maybe that helps me be in the creative space. But with the folks that I've been talking to, I feel like they are falling on a spectrum between two extremes. On the one hand, there's a lot of creatives who are in flow during this pandemic. This crisis has ignited their creativity. This type of stress, they're able to turn it into energy. And they are cranking out content faster than anybody. They keep it going. Something is flowing out of them all the time. This stress, they've been able to do something with it. They've been able to harness it and still operate in their gifting. And that's pretty amazing. On the other end of the spectrum, there are people who feel like they're in a flood. They're in information overload. Their emotions are all over the place. They feel numb or debilitated, or maybe even just paralyzed by all of it. And their creative flow has stopped. These are the folks who are just too exhausted to think about what they need to think about, to do what they do and do it at their best. Now, honestly, I think most people, and I'm going to say us, actually float somewhere in the middle. We ping back and forth between these extremes depending on the day, depending on how much rest we've gotten, or dependent upon the news that we've received concerning our friends and families and loved ones. So I want to leave you with a couple of ways that you can explore this idea of purpose while we're in the midst of this pandemic, no matter where on the spectrum you fall. The first thing that I want to encourage you to do is to not just be a creator of beauty, but to experience beauty every day. Find a way to have a moment of awe and wonder every day. Whether that is a safe walk around your neighborhood, whether that is exploring a piece of music or a piece of art electronically, whether that is listening to a baby giggle. Whatever you need to do to experience beauty, awe, and wonder, do it. Because you are the givers of that for other people. And sometimes you forget that you need a dose of that for yourself. The other thing is, I want you to remember that creatives are essential workers. Now, I don't know about all of you, but I don't really watch a lot of TV. But had it not been for Netflix, I am certain that there would be some pure insanity happening around here at the battle station. This pandemic has proven, creative community, that you are and have always been essential personnel. What in the world would all of us be doing with all of this extra time on our hands had it not been for the outpouring of our creative community? Every movie you watch, every piece of music you listen to, every piece of art that you look at. And I don't want to limit the creative community to just those things, but that voodoo that you do, that thing that you do, is essential and it's necessary on the planet right now. And the last thing that I want to invite you to do while you're exploring your purpose during this pandemic is, no matter where you fall on this spectrum of flow and flood, while you're floating around in between, is to engage in a practice that I was blessed to receive called 15 minutes of grace. So let me tell you what 15 minutes of grace is. This too is an invitation for you to create sacred space in your day where you're not judged, condemned, or compared to anybody else. So what does that look like, Sheila? That means for 15 minutes, you are not comparing your life, your gift, or your body to somebody on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, or any of that. It means that you don't condemn yourself with harsh judgments. I think in a lot of circles, they call it the inner critic. Well, for 15 minutes, you get to tell him or her to shut that noise up and be quiet. It's an amazing space where you get to just be. You get to just breathe, and you get to believe. You get to believe that a better day is coming, y'all, because it is. You get to untangle yourself from all the cares and all the concerns and all the pain and all the grief. Because in this season especially, we recognize that grief isn't just about death, but it's about loss. And for some of us, the loss of the life we had before is overwhelming. So usually when I do an event or I'm speaking somewhere, I offer a challenge. And the challenge is for you to participate in 15 minutes of grace for 7 days, just for 7 days. What's funny is people usually say to me, wait a minute, Sheila, you want me to be alone with myself, by myself, unsupervised for 15 minutes? Actually, I do. And I know that you can do it. See, because during 15 minutes of grace, it's about silencing the noise. So you turn your phone off, you turn the TV off, and you let the silence have its say. Because a lot of the questions that you've been asking, your life has been too busy for you to hear the answer. And so in 15 minutes of grace, you allow yourself to hear that, to experience that, and maybe even to wrestle with it a bit. The other cool thing that 15 minutes of grace does is it allows you to relive joy. Because see, during that 15 minutes, you can call back up to mind a time in your life where you experienced pleasure, joy, peace, or grace. So here's my challenge for the next 7 days. For the next 7 days, I want you to take your phone. I want you to set the timer for 15 minutes, and then I want you to turn your phone face down so that you don't get distracted by alerts. If it buzzes, beeps, or vibrates, careful, family, because I know some people have things that vibrate, but you know, if it buzzes, beeps, or vibrates, you got to turn it face down and you got to put it away for 15 minutes. And trust that it is okay for you to be alone with yourself, by yourself for 15 minutes. Now, if you struggle, start out with 5 minutes and work your way up to 15. So I'm going to pop over into the gallery view. And if you are going to take me up on my challenge for 7 days, I want you to wave at me. Snaps, thumbs up, wave. Awesome, 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 awesome. And because I'm communal and I'm already in love with all of y'all, I want to hear from you about how the 7 days went. So we'll figure out how to make sure that you all get my information. But after you do this exercise for 7 days, I want to hear from you. If it was hard, I want you to tell me, Sheila, this sucked. This was hard. This was probably the hardest thing I've done since we've been on quarantine. If you had a revelation moment, not even an aha moment, but just a moment, I want to hear about that too. Now, what you do after the 15 minutes is most important. Some people journal until their pens bleed. For some people, it's a power shot, excuse me, and it jump starts or kick starts their creativity. Some people come out of 15 minutes of grace feeling overwhelmed with gratitude. So whatever your experience is, I want to hear about it. Okay? I appreciate all of you so much for showing up and being present in this moment with me. And family, I want you to know that no matter what fear is trying to tell us in this season, the little bit of faith that we have can speak louder if we make room for it. Y'all, hug yourselves for me real quick. That's from your Auntie Sheila. Just squeeze yourself, because when I hug people, I squeeze them. So squeeze yourself real good. That one is from me. Take care, family. Miss Michelle, do we have any questions?
Yes, we would love to take some questions. Thank you so much. And having been a recipient of your hugs, I hope you all squeezed yourself and basically took your own breath away. Please go ahead, and if you have questions, what we want you to do is raise your hand or pop your name into chat, and we will find and unmute you. But while we are waiting for our first question to come through, Sheila, one of the things that you've said every single time that you and I have actually chatted is we love everyday people every day. And I just want to hear more about that from you and what that means to you.
Yeah. So this whole everyday people, are we jamming?
Yeah, I think Lindsay's computer went a little rogue.
This idea of loving everyday people every day is more about the fact that you don't have to be a thing or do a thing to be loved or to belong. There's no requirements. All you have to do is be. And just being in your being well in your being, qualifies you for unconditional love from people, unconditional support. And if you are not in a season of life where that's a natural thing for you to receive, then we at the Battle Station want to love on you and support you and encourage you in whatever way that we can. And so we're not famous or infamous. We're here to serve. And so however we can support people in their journey and come alongside them, that's what we want to do.
Great. We do have a question in the chat, but I cannot find Matt, and I don't know if he wants to be unmuted anyway. So, and for some reason my chat went rogue. Hold on just a second. Lindsay's computer's playing music. My chat doesn't want me to actually see any questions. I don't know what's happening here. Give me just a second. It's like I'm touching it and it doesn't like it. Okay.
So we also had
I think,
question.
yeah, if you could grab it, Jolinda, I can't get to where it was.
Go ahead, Joe.
So Diana also had a question. She's raised her hand. So Diana, would you like to take it away?
You unmute, I think, or not?
You're good.
No, you're good. You're good.
All right. So actually, I didn't have any questions, Sheila, and for everyone, but I just wanted to give or to blow kisses because you give us a hug. So I just wanted to spread and give the love back.
But Diane, I appreciate that so much. I promise you, the huggers are not well. So for those of you who know a hugger, check on the huggers after this call, because I'm telling you, this not being able to reach out and touch, there just really is something to be said about the energy exchange that happens when we're together. And while I'm grateful for all of the technology and the ways that we can still connect, I can't wait to be back in the room with some folks, other than the folks that I love here in the Battle Station, my family.
Awesome.
Sheila, what do you suggest we do in the 15 minutes, be alone with ourselves when our thoughts wander, that kind of thing?
So you know what? Thanks, Lindsay. That's a great question, because 15 minutes of grace is, I don't call it a mindfulness practice, because it's not about emptying your brain or trying not to think about a thing. It's about being strategic about what you're thinking about. And so for some people, they can't automatically sit and do the entire 15 minutes of grace in silence. But what I encourage them to do is start where they can and grow it. And so for some people, it's one piece of music. So the average song is like, 4 minutes? So if you played 4 songs, you could get through the 15 minutes. 3 or 4 songs, you could get through it, right? The goal with that is, though, to not play music that has words, because then those words and those lyrics take you away from thinking about what you're thinking about. But if you need that as an anchor to help stabilize you, then yes, you can absolutely do that. The other thing is, because I've been doing 15 minutes of grace for over 20 years, but 20 years ago, I didn't have kids. And I didn't have quite so much to remember on my to-do list. And so I'm patient with myself. And I'll keep a notepad nearby so that if I do remember that I need to get some milk, I can write that down, but it doesn't take me out of the practice. It doesn't take me out of my sit for that day. And life is crazy. I mean, I live at the battle station. So sometimes I have to do 15 minutes of grace in the bathroom, in the parking lot, in my minivan, at Target. Like, I have to go somewhere and do it. And that's totally fine. But I'll get it in where I can fit it in, basically. And sometimes I have to do it multiple times a day. Because I am auntie, and I don't want to be the raging auntie.
Matt's question was, do you have a particular place or spot you grace yourself with? And I think you answered that. So, and Patricia, thank you so much for sending that over to me privately as well. Did I miss any other questions in here? Did you see anything else, Linz? If you have one, Paige asks, does your husband practice grace?
So my husband is the nicest man I've ever met in my life. I have no idea how and where I hit the jackpot with this man. But yes, he is the epitome of grace. And his 15 minutes of grace looks a little different than mine. He's a creative. He does all of the video and production work for everything that we do. Soulful Conversations, the podcast, the YouTube channel. He handles all of that. And I think that his moment comes in the creation of a thing, right? And so he can be preparing to edit a video or to work on some content for us. And I think that's when he goes into the silence so that he pulls something out that's magical. Yeah.
So Sheila, we have two follow-up questions. I don't think anyway, it'll add some levity. Number one, can Sheila come live at my house from Tammy Harrison? So
my husband said no.
Okay.
But call me sugar. Call me sugar. You might come sit on the big brown sofa. Come sit on the big brown sofa.
So Veronique is joining us from Sherbrooke, and she asked, does he have a brother asking for a friend?
Ladies and gentlemen, if I could clone this man and sell him on eBay, I would. If I could do that, I would. But no, he has no brothers. It's just him. But I share him freely, Nadia. And there's some other folks I see on this gallery. They know. Some people call him Uncle Frank. Some people call him Mr. Frank. Some people call him Big Frank. But he is the best brother that anybody could have. And so, yeah, we share. He shares me with the world, and I share him with the world.
That's
so it works
awesome.
out.
So where can people find, actually there's two questions and then we'll transition where people can find you before our final activity today. So so Diana says, two questions. What could we say to someone who doesn't have a purpose yet? And how can we now share what you gave us today? So I'm actually going to take the second one. All of this is going to be recorded. It'll be on the Creative Mornings site as well. So that's a literal translation. But I think, Sheila, if you want to say what we could say to somebody who doesn't have a purpose yet and how we can now share what you gave us today.
So honestly, the two points we talked about earlier regarding passion and regarding praise. So if I was sitting on a big brown sofa with somebody, I would ask them about what they're passionate about. We did this exercise in the beginning where we put our hand over our heart and we pressed our fingertips in. And for some folks who are a little fluffier like me, you have to press in a little harder so that you can feel your heartbeat. You can feel that rhythm that vibrates through your fingers. What are you doing that causes that energy surge in your heart space? That's purpose. That's purpose. And I think a lot of us get lost because we think, oh, nobody's going to pay me for that. Or how could I make a living doing that? Or whatever. And that's not what it's always about. You still may have to work a regular job, which I've done for years, and still walk out your purpose. This conversation, so any soulful conversation, that's part of my purpose. And so I would advise people to think about that and really, sit with what brings me pleasure. What activity, what thing that when I do it, I actually feel pleasure. Okay. And then the other side of that coin is, when I'm doing it, am I doing it for praise? Am I doing it for people? Am I doing it for approval? Am I doing it because I'm trying to use that thing to fill up a broken place in me? If those things aren't an issue, then the likelihood is that you found your purpose. And a lot of people, especially in the work that we do, they really do know. They're just afraid. And so then we work on that fear conversation and replace it with a love conversation so they can walk out what they're supposed to do on the planet.
Beautiful.
Thank you so much, Sheila, for joining us today. I know that your screen name is that 15 minutes of grace. So
Yes.
how can people find you? Is there any other way that you want people to find you?
Yeah, so we always issue this challenge everywhere we go. And we've been all over the place doing that. And the email address that we give people, because I really do want your feedback, is info@thebattlestation.org. And once you do the 7-day challenge, send me an email back and in the subject say, I did it. And then tell me your story. We are collecting stories. We love stories because they're not just a testament to this work. It's an opportunity for you to express yourself after you've had this experience, because sometimes people do it and then they don't have anywhere to put it. So you can put your story in our inbox and we'll respond. So info@thebattlestation.org is where you can send us your stories about your 15 minutes of grace experience.
Great. So right before we wrap up, we are going to do one last thing. So if you haven't spoken out loud yet to somebody, you might want to warm up your singing voice or your purpose voice. Take a sip of coffee or get ready, because we're about to unmute absolutely everybody. And Sheila has a question for you. So Linz, are you going to hit that unmute button? Ask your question.
Okay, I'm going to mute everyone first, and then Sheila's going to ask the question.
Okay. So my question is, using one word, I want you to holler out what your purpose is. Ready?
And if you don't know your purpose, you're going to say unicorn.
Mr. Potato Head.
Mr. Potato Head. There we go. Ready? On the count of three. Go ahead, Sheila.
1, 2, 3.
Joy.
Make people
Good.
subscribe.
Mr. Potato Head.
Activity.
That was good. That was good.
Awesome. Yes, I think, yep. Oh, I think Lindsay muted me.
No, you're good. Okay. You're good. You're good.
Sheila, thank you again so much for joining us today. And thank you all for joining us. We hope that you have a wonderful Creative Friday. And time here with you is one of those magic moments. We love seeing your faces. And we'll see you next month, May 15th.